Hello everyone. Today I'm going to do a little tutorial on how to achieve some non-photorealistic anime style effect like this piece here that I did a couple of months ago using Blender and Toonkit. So for this piece I actually use Toonkit. Toonkit is an add-on for Blender, and you can find it on Blender Market. Unfortunately, it's not free. It's gonna cost you about $50. Sometimes it's on sale, usually for something like $37 or something like that. But the reason I'm using this actually is because it sort of gives me a standardized framework for doing non-photorealistic renderings. And to be honest, it's a very powerful toolkit, and it can achieve a lot of things. You can look here on some of the examples, and one of them, like the most important feature of this is, in my opinion, is this line rendering engine that they have. So it's basically doing line rendering in real time. So instead of using freestyle, for example, which does post processing line rendering, this does it on the fly. So basically this tutorial is only for people who are interested in using Toonkit, or maybe you just want to see the features of the Toonkit, or you want to just learn something new. This tutorial is for you. And if you want to see how I do my process of actually achieving this style here. So again, here is the Blender file that I have, and as you can see here, on the left side I have the model here, and on the right side I got myself a scene here. And so we've got a couple of donuts and a cup of coffee or tea, whatever you want to call it. And we have a tray with nice reflections. And as you can see, it renders pretty fast, even though it's rendering on the CPU. And this is one of the limitations of using Toonkit. You have to use the CPU, but it's still pretty fast, and I would argue it's actually faster than rendering normally with cycles. It's not as fast as Eevee, but it's pretty good. It gives you real-time results. So let me go to this file here. So this is what you are going to get. I'm going to post this in the description below, a link to this blend file, and this blend file will just contain this scene here. It's a simple scene. You got a plate here, a tray, and you have got a cup, and inside it there's some sort of a liquid. Here you got a donut and another donut. This donut has some particles on it, and a couple of napkins here, and just a plane here. So I'm not going to actually show you how I modeled this, because literally there are hundreds of tutorials on YouTube that you can actually look at this and see how they were modeled. Basically, at this point, I think if you're using Blender, everyone got his own version of some sort of a donut. If you don't have, I recommend some tutorials. I will recommend some tutorials for you in the description. But anyways, you get this file. If you don't want to do any modeling, you get it. It's free to use. You can do whatever you want with it. So with that out of the way, let's start with the process here. So what I like first to do is go here to the Properties tab and go to the render properties, and let's set up our render properties. The render engine we have here is Cycles because we're using Toonkit. And by the way, you have to make sure that you have Toonkit in your add-ons here. You go to the Preferences, Add-ons. You have to have, Toonkit. You have to have Cycles Toonkit here enabled. But anyways, so again, render engine is Cycles. Device is CPU, not GPU. GPU won't work because if I try now to switch to GPU, the tech box that had the open shading language thing disappeared. You go to CPU, it's here, it's open shading language. So I choose that. And also here you can go down and you find Toonkit render settings. So you can choose the quality that you want. Do you want like preview quality for now? Or if you want to render your stuff, you can choose either draft, mid, or production quality. And what's interesting, if you choose production quality and you go to the sampling, you realize it's only 32 samples. So basically you're able to render something that is production ready with only 32 samples. That's amazing. And that's why really using the CPU is not a major setback in this case. I just wish we could use the GPU, but I mean, we can't complain. So I'm gonna just choose preview for now, and the sampling is for just 2 samples. Well, maybe I go a little bit higher, draft is fine. If you look here, there are some options here. I'm not gonna touch them for now. I'm gonna maybe do something with them later. If you go to color management, we're going to change Filmic to standard. I don't like Filmic for non-photorealistic renderings. Usually standard gives better colors for NPR work. So we're done with this. Now, if we go to the world settings, just like leave, we're not done with this yet. Go back to the render options, film. I like to actually make the background transparent. I don't want to see any background. So let's go back to the world options. And by the way, I might be going a little bit too fast, but like this tutorial is sort of aimed at not absolute beginners. I mean, you should be able to follow this. If you cannot follow all of this, you have to maybe check some beginner tutorial series first and then come back. So I'm gonna leave these things alone. Here you can see the Toonkit world settings, and they have their own special settings for the ambient light and the global brightness. For now, we're just gonna leave them like that, but keep it in mind, we might change these values. So let's start with the texturing process. So what I like to do is actually split this guy here into two, split this window here into 2 pieces and change one of them into my shader editor. And here, this one is just to see things. Right, so let's first, because now if I go to the viewport shading rendering, it's going to look very dark. We need to add some sort of a light source first, right? So I'm gonna just add here a light source. So go Shift A, or you can go here from Add, Light, Point Light, and go bring it up here. Try to position it somewhere. I'll position it like here. we can play with that later. Oops. We can play with that later. So now if I render, okay, there is a little bit of a light source, but it's not that clear. That's because we still did not use any shading. So let's start with the cup. Let's start shading the cup. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to add here a new material to the cup, and we get our principled material node here. We don't need it because obviously in Toonkit, if you click Shift A or add here, you can get an easy toon. This is the basic toon shader you can use for the Toonkit to get like this toon style. And so you get this and you connect the output here with the surface, and now if you click render, you get this interesting thing. But you notice like the other things are so what do you call it, like blurry, or lots of fireflies going on, and that's because they're still not properly shaded with the easy toon shader. So basically I want to focus on this, so I'm gonna select the cup here and I'm going to hit backslash on my keyboard just to isolate it so I don't get distracted. So let's play a little bit with the shadow here. So the shadow, I want it actually to be a lot lighter, so it's going to be a very soft shadow here. So as you can see, I have two options here, one for the light and one for the shadow. I just chose the shadow here and did that. So also you have an option for the cells here, and if you increase it, you have, I don't know if that's apparent, maybe if I make this a little bit darker, this is gonna get apparent. You have many different cells of shadows. But for anime style, you just go with 1, or you go sometimes with 0, which makes it essentially just very smoothly shaded. So 1 is what we need. Next, we can disable soft shadow. It's just going to reduce the amount of shadow like inside here from the object, so just make it 0. Less shadow. We don't need any shadows anyways in the inside. If you find like this thing to be a little bit dark, maybe we can go back here to the world settings and make the global brightness 1.2. Just increase that. So again, the shadow, make it very light here. I don't want something that's very harsh. Okay, now for the line thickness, as you can see here, it's very bold. They're having like some sort of a bold line. So I'm going to go here to the settings for the line color, or under it there is the line intensity, and you just go to first, line intensity, let's make it 0.8, and for the line style I'll make it 0.4. You can play with that and see what you like, maybe a little bit intense. So you can play with these settings and see how you like it, but I don't want something that's very aggressive. In terms of specularity, it doesn't look like we have lots of specularity going on, but there is some specularity, especially because we have very light colors. But if I change the color here, you can see there are some specular spots here, which aren't very apparent in our case. you can reduce the intensity here. And play with this value to get some nice reflections here. So you can increase the specularity, which basically increases the size of this specular specular light, and the intensity just makes it less or more bright. Okay. So that was a very long introduction to do a cup, but what else? Now, also part of the anime modeling or anime, let's say, design, one thing that you have to look at or pay attention to is that it's really not a complete solid color. So as you can see here, it's sort of a solid color going on, right? Just white and gray. And in anime, it's not really that, like usually it's not this, that's not the case. There's some sort of a gradient going on. So what we can do is actually add a gradient here. So just go to add and search gradient texture. So here's my gradient texture, and we can add a color ramp node, connect the color to the factor and connect the color here to the light. So this is obviously looking wrong here, so just switch these. So I'm gonna switch these, so make the white on the left side and the black here on the right side. And the black I'm going to go higher with the value, higher. So I'm just looking to get this little amount of like some sort of a gradient going on, some sort of a shading going on, to replicate some sort of a brush stroke, right? Or an airbrush. I mean, it's not very obvious, but if you change, of course, the color, you can see it better. So here I change it to red. You see it better. I'm gonna go back to gray. I'm gonna go higher. And for the shadow, I'm gonna go here a little bit lower. And this is supposed to be a shadow. And drag this a little bit. So, I mean, just try to play a little bit until you find values that are satisfying to you. So basically, if you tab into edit mode here, I already created 2 loops in this cup, and you can basically add some sort of a line on these edges. So I want some sort of a line along here, these edges, because here these lines are automatically generated, but I want something that's going on here. So in order to do that, just tab into edit mode, hit N to open this menu here, go to Toonkit on the right side, and basically if you select this loop, just hit Alt and right or left click onto this to select the entire loop here. And what you can do is, I have already stuff here, I'm gonna delete them, sorry about that. You can choose whatever ID you want, like it doesn't matter to be honest, just choose something, maybe 4. And basically hit fill selected faces. And that's it. Now tap back into object mode. and nothing happened. That's because we have this option in the EasyTune panel. It's called Line ID. And basically if I hit Shift A, Toonkit, and then I go to Effects, Line Art ID, I get this node. And this node I just basically plug it into the line ID, and immediately I get these lines here. I also get a bunch of other lines. That's because I already did that beforehand. So I selected like the bottom here, these loops here in the bottom, and I clicked fill selected faces. And so basically you do that and we get this. Now for this area here, what you can do, because it's now plain white, what you can do is go to material here, material tab on the right side, add a new material and hit. So we added this new material, and I'm going to choose material 1, which is the same material essentially that we have here. And so what's the idea here? We just click this duplicate button or the new material button to make it a unique material. And now what we can do is go here to these colors and change the colors a little bit. Oh, and before that I want to assign it. So again, select these faces here and assign them to material 2. Okay, so we change the colors, maybe a little bit bluish. Like so. You can also like play with the number of cells here. And basically just edit it to something that you like. So this looks good to me. So let's hit backslash again, and now we have the cup ready.